Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. I actually was almost late because I've been just chatting with you guys back and forth in the comments, and I was just typing away. And then it was like, you're supposed to be live now. So thank you guys so much for already being here with me. I'm super excited about today. I think I say that every week, but I am equally excited today as I usually am every Thursday. If this is your first EverBee Live, hello. There's a couple of people in the comments that say this is their first one. Thank you so much for being here. It looks like we've got people literally from all over the world already tuning in. I'm talking Maryland, Australia, South Florida. We actually have someone that said from Michigan. They're actually where I am as well. They said, "Go Blue." I have no stake in the game. I'm actually a Florida Gator, to be honest, but I guess I'm obligated to say go green simply because I live in Lansing, but don't come after me. I don't care, to be quite frank. So go blue for you guys. So I'm super excited to be here. Like I said a second ago, I just have three very quick pieces of housekeeping that I want to go over before we dive into today's training. The first one is, oh, hey, Wayne and Robert. Robert, I missed you. I haven't seen your name in a long time. So if you wouldn't mind, everybody that is either watching this video live with me right now or anyone who is watching the replay, if you can go ahead and just take a quick pause and do a little thumbs up for me and like this video. We are trying to get these lives out to as many people as possible because we're seeing so many first timers here today. And I would love to continue that kind of trend going forward. So again, if you wouldn't mind, give me a thumbs up on this video itself, no matter if you're watching live or you are watching the replay. Number two is I am also going to plug you real fast, or plug myself, if you will, plug EverBee. Oh, thanks, guys. You guys, you guys are giving me all thumbs up in the comments. That's fine too, and I appreciate you. But if we could actually like the video, I'm sorry if I wasn't as communicative as I wanted to be there. So the second thing I would like to ask you guys, if you wouldn't mind, if you are not subscribed to the channel, especially for my first timers, highly recommend go ahead and subscribe to our channel now because no one knows about this yet except for me and my boss. But we are actually going to be bringing new people into these Coffee with EverBee. So it's still going to be me. I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry. But I am going to start bringing some new faces that are some of your more than likely favorite YouTubers on YouTube, on YouTube in the Etsy space. So I want you to subscribe to the channel so that you know when those things take place. We are at least going to do one per month, potentially more. We've already got things lined up August through October of this year with three of some of the literal top earners in the Etsy space. So I want to make sure you guys know when that comes. So just be mindful of that. So subscribe to the channel, keep notifications on, and we will let you know as those things come in, okay? Last but not least, I just wanted to let you guys know, if you were on our live stream last week, I talked about how I was going to do a video discussing the changes or the updates that Etsy announced on July 9th. So there's some creativity standard changes. There's some mock-up, I don't want to say changes per se, but really telling us exactly what they are approving and what they are not permitting on the on the marketplace. And then we also talked about like AI, how does AI work on Etsy? What are they approving, etc. So I went ahead and posted that video this Tuesday. So 2 days ago, it is the most recent video on our YouTube channel. I went ahead and linked it in the comments, and I also linked it in the description of this live stream, whether you're watching it live or on replay. Highly recommend. It is literally 10 to 11 minutes long. Recommend, if you haven't already, go watch that video after we get done here because it breaks down everything that you need to know about, let's say, it doesn't really matter what kind of seller you are, but print on demand sellers and handmade sellers are the most impacted. But then we also, for our digital sellers, found out that there are basically 2 to 3 things that are no longer approved on Etsy, and it could risk you getting your listings and or shop shut down. So highly recommend go check that out after this, just to make sure that you are in alignment with Etsy's new standards, okay? So with that said, hi, Tracy. Nice to see you again. It looks like Linda also said, I have serious questions on how to list now. I totally understand. If you want to drop those in the comments, or even if you want to reach out to me personally within our Facebook group, by all means, I'm sure the questions that you have, everybody else has as well. So if I'm able to address them, I will. But with that said, let's go ahead and get our training up for today. If you head to the description of this video, or if you open, let me just make sure I have the right thing open for myself. Or if you go to the very top of the comments, the live comments on this live stream, you'll also see what we are going to be going over today. I went ahead and made it so everybody could access this immediately at the same time that I am going through it. But also, there is a link in there that I want you guys to have access to as well, which is a list of like lower competition and potentially underserved keywords. Okay. So make sure you have that. It's in the description of this video. It's like a Google Drive link. Or again, you can scroll up to the top of these comments and you're able to find that as well. But for now, let's go ahead and get started. I will share my screen right now. Just give me one quick second. Probably should have had this up before we started talking. There we go. All right. So getting into the actual training for today. As always, if you are brand new, or of course, if you are or if you've been here before in the past with us, I am linking this below, first of all. But also, if you have any questions in the moment, so if there's anything that pops up over anything we go over today, feel free to drop them in the comments. And I do, again, if you haven't been here before, I do check the comments periodically, basically after every section. So anything you have for me, pop them in the comments. If you are watching this on replay and you were not able to attend the live, that's totally fine. Just drop your comments, or excuse me, your questions in the comments. And that is me that is responding to them. So I will make sure that I get back to you as soon as possible. For today's training, I'm actually kind of doing a combo training in a way. One that we're going to go over right away, just because it's, the season of life we're in, is I wanted to kind of get into some underserved and unsaturated back to school places that you guys might be able to get into. Part two / my like combo training is I also wanted to show you guys how I perform my niche research. And by the way, if this is your first time, everyone makes me aware that I say niche wrong. So it is what it is. I'm running the show, so it's going to be called niche. And I hope you guys don't have nails on a chalkboard too bad with my voice every time I say it. So what we're going to do today is not only go over the back to school stuff, but I'm also going to show you how I performed this research instead of just doing it and then giving you guys a bunch of tools. So instead of just showing you the results, I want to actually show you the process so that you can replicate this in the future. Because as we both know, and I'm saying both, there's obviously hundreds of us here, but as we all know, back to school could start in April. It could start in January, and obviously it could start in different times of the year depending on what type of student or teacher you are. So not only will you be able to replicate my process for all of those back to school times, but theoretically it could also be something that you can literally do all year long, no matter what you're trying to get into. Okay. So with that said, let's go ahead and hit the meat and potatoes first of the process. How I actually got to the research that we're going to do today. I'm going to show you my process right now. So the first thing, again, we have a lot of newbies here. So Charles is what I call ChatGPT, simply because I talk to Charles all day, every day. So I had to name him, and he actually responds to Charles now. That's like how often I call him that. So what I like to do first, no matter what you're trying to look up, no matter what potential niche or industry or product you're trying to get into, when in doubt, ask Charles first. So in this particular example, my, very minor prompt, of course, you can see is, could you give me 10 different give me one sec. Could you give me 10 different types of teachers, coaches, professors that might be underserved on Etsy, but could be a good potential for making sales? So I want you guys to think when we're talking about back to school, and of course, this applies to literally everything else. But today our topic is back to school. I want you guys to think about what that actually means. So in my brain, maybe because I'm just crazy and I overanalyze everything, but in my brain, back to school means probably hundreds of different things, but three things pop into my head. Number one, who is going back to school? Like, is it just students? Is it preschool? Is it kindergarten? Is it fourth grade? Is it PhD? Is it masters, etc.? My brain, everybody calls me Rain Woman. If you guys have seen the movie Rain Man, because my brain literally goes a million different directions when I think of something like this. So number one, who is going back to school? Number two, who is teaching the people who are going back to school? So are we talking potential like PhD professors, nursing teachers? I don't know what they're called. That's, sorry for being disrespectful if I was there. Fourth grade teachers, stuff like that. And then thirdly, who loves or wants to gift both of those people? So technically there's four, I guess. It's like who wants to gift the students and who wants to gift the teachers or the educators. But once I have those ideas in my head for literally any type of industry, but of course we're talking about this topic today, I started putting those into ChatGPT just so I, first of all, don't have to start from scratch. AI was literally built to make our lives easier and make it more convenient. So I'm going to make my life easier. I'm going to make my life more convenient. And I'm going to get as much time freedom as I possibly can by making the most out of the research that I'm doing. So I can make legitimate data-driven decisions. Okay. So whatever you want to look up, obviously, my prompt is very small. It's nothing crazy. I usually like to use very intricate prompts, but for this one, I was just trying to get some ideas and get my brain power flowing. So once I did that, it gave me a couple of things. I asked for 10 of them, of course. Then what I want you guys to do is, based on the list, again, we're calling him Charles, based on the list that Charles gives you, and again, I'm going to say this probably 10 more times, the process that I'm giving you guys right now: step one, Charles getting your ideas and brainstorming. Step two, taking what he gave you and popping it into the search bar. This is literally replicable no matter what niche, no matter what target audience, no matter what product. Any type of research that you want to do literally all year long, this is the process that I use hands down over and over again. Okay. So hope it helps, and please take it. It is not proprietary. I just figured out how to do this over years of doing this. Step two, we're going to take what Charles gave us and we're going to type it into the Etsy search bar to validate if it's even being searched. Okay. So a quick example that I want to show you guys real fast is STEM coaches. So science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I typed in STEM into the Etsy search bar, and it was like zilch. It was very, very minor, if anything. However, when you break these up, science teacher, science student, engineering professor, engineering student, etc., engineering grad, whatever, that obviously got a lot bigger. So that's what I mean by like taking what he says and humanizing it and really thinking, okay, STEM didn't work. Shoot, we're not just going to give up there. We're going to figure out, okay, what does STEM mean? How can I break that up into more potential searches? Okay. So you'll see here, obviously, I'm so sorry, this is also like a very pixelated photo. I had to take it with my phone. But obviously, to be able to see these numbers, especially if you guys are brand new to any of our lives, you will have to have EverBee. Obviously, this is EverBee's logo. So like if you only grab what Charles gives you, pop it into the Etsy search bar, but you don't have the EverBee Chrome extension downloaded, you will only see these things that Etsy already kind of like prompts you with. You will not see these. So it's a little bit harder to validate whether or not any of these things actually make sense or not. So let's say, for example, special education PNG had 0 monthly searches. You can't see that because obviously Etsy only gives us like 4, but let's say it did. That would be very simple for me to validate and say, okay, maybe that's not the way to go, but maybe shirt is, or maybe teacher shirts is, simply because I have these little, I call them worker bees on the right-hand side telling me exactly what to do, okay? So I want you to do that second, again, as long as you have the EverBee Chrome extension. If you don't, that's no problem. This is not a sales video. This is just a training video to help you guys out. This will save you time to use the Chrome extension. However, you are very much so able to not use EverBee. And I don't mean to say that because obviously I work for EverBee, so I'm not saying like don't use it, but you can save time or you can spend more time. So it's completely up to you. I always say time is money. So if I have to spend a tiny bit of money to get a buttload of time back, I'm personally going to do that. I'm personally going to invest. However, if that's not how you run your business and we're not in the space where capital is available right now, that's totally fine. What you're going to do instead is just search through each of these individually and then kind of try to get an idea of what the competition looks like and then how many people might be potentially, again, you won't know the answer to that 100% without a software, but at least trying to get an idea of a potential for demand and a potential for competition. But again, if you want to save time like I do, I recommend it's very simple. Type it in and it'll pop right up. Okay. So that's step 2. Step 3 is, again, Charles's list, popping each of the examples into Charles's list to validate them. Then once we find things that we're like, that's interesting, that seems to have a good amount of searches, I want to now know what is the competition. I'm going to click see more next to the monthly search number. Okay, it's very simple. It's the exact same thing up here. We're just going to click that see more button. What's that's going to do is take us to the EverBee keyword research tool. So at the beginning, we were using our little worker bees to see if it was even a validated key phrase. Now we're actually going deeper into the keyword research tool to find this number right here. So not only is the search volume 600 for the term special education, but there's 43,000 people competing with that space. So I'm not a fan, but could we potentially dive a little bit deeper into the keyword research tool to see if there's anything else outside of special education, but still within it, if that makes sense? So special education t-shirt, special education planner, special education lanyard, stuff like that, where the competition goes lower. So then what I want to do in the same dashboard is start to use that, again, same dashboard to discover the lower saturated key terms and then get some ideas of obviously keywords we can potentially use and or products that might be in demand in that space that we would have never thought about ourselves. So in this particular case, I don't even know what this is. I'm not going to lie. I am not as fluent in 99% of the world as I should be, and I own that. So naturalism education is being looked up 444 times, and 2 people are competing for that space. And I would have never known that. Again, I still don't know what it is, but once I look it up, it might be something I want to get into. I would have never known that had I not started with steps 1 through 3. Another one, Christmas gift for educator, is already this month being looked up 400 times. Just imagine when we get to October, November, December. And then educated person gift is almost 1,000 people are actively searching that. So that's what I kind of want to use this space to figure out. Maybe we don't necessarily want to use these keywords, especially stuff like this that are spelled wrong or that have weird spaces. But I am being smart and looking through things that like, I would have never thought about that. Maybe that's, first of all, a key term or a key phrase I can use. But secondly, maybe it is a product that I can add to my shop. Okay. Last up, if I'm not mistaken, let me just make sure. Nope, not last up. We're almost there. So last or second to last is we want to go back to the original Etsy search in the search bar. And then this time, instead of clicking see more, we are going to click on product analytics. Again, everything that I'm talking about today has to happen through EverBee, so please be mindful of that. We're going to click on product analytics, and I want you to make sure that you are looking at all of them. So what EverBee is going to automatically do is show you, if I'm not mistaken, the first 60 to 70 listings, which is just the first page of that individual Etsy search. What we want to do is start to dive into the bigger options. So like how many, and it'll say search entire database. Okay. So once you click on that, it'll be right here. You'll see we are now looking at 43,000. Now, I don't want you to go through this list quite yet. We haven't gotten to that point yet. That's something you can do way, way later in the future. However, I still want to be in this location for a very particular tool, if you will, service that EverBee offers called the Tag Analyzer. Okay. Again, this is something that if you're brand new to EverBee, you might not even know that this exists, or if you don't have EverBee at all, you will not see this, of course. But when we are in the product analytics dashboard for, again, the original search term that you looked up, and again, searching entire database for that search term, in the top right-hand corner, you should automatically at least see a button called Tag Analyzer, okay? So at this point, we are basically on step 5 of my research process to validate any niche or add any new keywords, products to my space. And again, this can be used at all times. And once you do it once, twice, 5 times, it becomes like this. Like I am able to knock out this like 6 to 7 step process in a matter of probably 60 seconds now, simply because I've done it so many times. So it looks like a lot in the beginning, but once you get your hands on each of these steps, which are included in the PDF that I gave you guys in the link of this video, should become easier, okay? Once we click Tag Analyzer, what is going to happen is this little thingy is going to pop up, which is basically a collection of every single keyword or long tail key phrase that people that were under the original search term for special education. So I'm going to go back up, make it a little bit easier. 43, let me zoom in a little bit. 43,000 listings were looked at by EverBee. They were scrubbed across this search, right? Now, the Tag Analyzer tells us that there is a collection of 716 key words and or long tail key phrases within those 43,000 listings, okay? So why this is important is, of course, you can see here a couple things that, again, I might not have ever thought of, like communication cards under special education, visual communication, again, under special education, goal trackers, mental health, regulation, all of those things that like might not have automatically came to my head. Now I have a running list of dozens of things that I could potentially either add to my store or deep dive into more so individually, okay? So with that said, that is kind of the 6 to 7 step process of how I complete, no matter what the niche is, no matter what the target audience is, no matter what the product, no matter what the season, I could go on and on. I complete this research every single time, those 6 to 7 steps. Okay. So I'm going to check the comments really quickly just to see if there's any questions that I can currently address. And of course, if you have any questions about the 6 to 7 steps that I just went over, feel free to let me know as well. But let's go ahead and address some of those questions before I get back into part 2, which technically should have been part 1, I guess. But I had to show you why I got to part 2, which would be the back to school research. Okay. Let me go ahead and get in here real quick. Okay, beautiful. Oh, thank you. Someone said, excited to hear what you have to say. Appreciate you. All right. How do we add materials such as resin, polymer, or polymer clay? That's a good question. It doesn't really necessarily deal with what we're talking about today. But what I would say is on the listing form, you're going to have a section that allows for tags as well as materials. You are more than likely filling out your tags already simply for SEO purposes. But I highly recommend adding materials as well. They're just like more tags. And it shows up at the, like when you're first like looking at a listing. Actually, I can show you real fast. 1 second. When you're looking at a listing, based on if they, of course, filled out the materials. So I don't want to, they did. Okay, so I'll show you this example real fast so you can see what I mean. Share this tab instead. All right, we should all be looking at the birth flower necklace. And I just literally typed in Etsy, first thing that came up. So you'll be able to see down here under highlights, materials. And then, of course, all of these different other things that are filled out by the attributes that you fill out in the listing form. So that's what I would recommend. First of all, is you literally see that, like you see the photos, you see the title, you see the personalization and the variations, and then you immediately see materials. So that's first of all where I would add that. Secondly, I would add it into your listing photos if it is something that you believe is going to convince someone to purchase. Lastly, I would also add it into the description itself. Okay. All right, switching back over real fast. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so we're not distracted at all by that. All right, let's see. For POD sellers that create their own designs with a program or AI or both, do you still choose the option another company on who made the design? Good question. So this is definitely something that you can more than likely find within the Etsy CEO announcement video we made on Tuesday. So again, highly recommend checking that out after this call. But I also will say, I'll just say it on this call now, there are 4 different classifications that Etsy is calling us now. I'm actually going to reshare this tab real fast so you can see what I mean in real time. So right here, you'll see designed by whatever the name is, right? So it's going to forever now until they make another change. It's going to say designed by, made by, handpicked by, or sourced by blank, whatever your shop name is. So to answer your question, it's not I don't actually know the answer to this 100%, so I don't want to say with 100% certainty. My personal opinion, just to cover my bases, would be another company, but I am the designer. So as long as you have your print production partner information filled out, aka let's say whoever you use, like I think like Printify or something, and then they're in San Francisco, and here's what I have as the role in working with them versus what their role is. As long as you have all of that figured out, filled out, you should be able to be covered. What I highly recommend, however, is don't listen to me. Go into that video I sent, I told you guys about from Tuesday of this week. Again, it's the first video you can see on our site if you're watching this on July 18th. In the description of that video, I linked out probably 7 different articles that Etsy launched themselves 2 weeks ago, one of which is Etsy's print production partner policy. So make sure you go in there and find the actual answer, not just my opinion, that Etsy wants you to do. Okay, so interesting. So someone asked, I have not heard this yet. Someone said I read an article saying this time, this year, I guess, the average household spend for back to school items will be much lower than $500. Are there any suggestion on which kinds of less expensive printables or products that can be given to these people? So that's an interesting question. And I think back to school is also an interesting niche on Etsy itself, because when we think back to school, personally, I could be crazy here, I think like pens, notebook paper, backpack. Like that's what my brain goes to. Etsy is different. Etsy is gifts for people going back to school, gifts for people who love people going back to school. So, for example, let's say a son, an 18-year-old son, is going to college, and then someone, either himself or someone else, buys his mom a like memorial. That sounds bad. He didn't die. He just went to college, but like a keychain of some sort to memorialize his time at home. So it's more so focused on those kinds of people and those kinds of items, and less so what people actually need to go back to school. So it's more so gifts for teachers who are going back to school. It's more so teacher shirts where they want to wear to their first day of school. So I hope that makes sense. I don't think that article is applicable to what is sold on Etsy in the back to school space. Blah, 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 blah. So this is not related to today's as well, but I'll try to address it as quickly as I can. I have 34 sizes of t-shirts. And when I want to add colors, Etsy restricts me to only 400 variations. That is true, a combo of the 400, which leaves me with not enough colors, excuse me, colors, in my opinion. Is there a way to work around this? No, unfortunately, there's not a way to work around this. However, I would highly recommend, I don't know how many, I am not good at whatever that P word is, where you like factorials. I'm not good at that whatsoever. I can barely add, but I would say 400 variations of anything is way too much. A confused buyer doesn't buy, or a confused searcher doesn't continue searching. So I would say 400 is way, way, way too much. I also think 34 sizes is also very, very overwhelming for me personally. and probably 90% of the population on Etsy trying to purchase. So I would do some research on your niche individually. What aesthetic is selling best? What are the highest performers? Let's say periwinkle blue is a color that you have, but navy blue is a color that has been proven to sell. I would go with navy blue instead, and now we have cut periwinkle out of the game. Of course, if you wanted to work around this and offer every single variation of size, every single variation of color, you could create 2 listings and then link both of the individual listings in the individual descriptions of the other listing. Like if you're looking for pastel colors, for example, click this link, something like that. That's one way to get around it. But again, it's not something that I would recommend. Do you look at the keyword score or the competition? Good question. So Annette asked that question. What I always do, no matter what I'm looking up, to be honest, I always filter by keyword score, simply because keyword score is the volume of search, which people are actively looking up that key phrase, in ratio to the competition, people who are actively competing for space within that phrase, times 1,000. So the keyword score filtration system, in my opinion, again, is just like asking ChatGPT for ideas. It's just going to make your life quicker. It's going to go a lot faster, because what if we searched by competition and there were very low competing numbers on the first 100 of them, but then there were also significantly low demand? Might not be something you want to get into. So what I like to do is filter by keyword score on any of these places, the keyword research tool, the tag analyzer, etc., simply because it gives me better data to manipulate and play with and dissect, rather than having to basically do the data research 3 times. So, can we dive deeper into the tag analyzer results, like clicking on visual communication on the list? Very good question. Let's do that together. 1 second. All right, I'm going to just type in, I'm just going to do back to school because it makes sense, because that is where we are at today. And here we go. Let me share my screen again really quickly. All right, you guys should see Etsy. So we're going to do this together. So product analytics. We are going to search entire database. So these are the steps that I was actively saying a second ago. Now you can see there's 495,000 under back to school. We're going to click tag analyzer. And if I'm not mistaken, I am 99% sure all it will let you do is copy the word. When I click on it, it should say up here, copy to clipboard. So let's just say reusable first day. Yes, okay, that's what I thought. I wanted to make sure right here with you guys so you can see what happens. However, now that that is copied to clipboard, what do you guys think I'm going to do? I am going to pop it into Etsy search bar and redo the exact same process. So I hope that made sense. Okay. Okay, I don't understand that question, so I'm going to skip that one for now, just for time's sake. Yeah, yes. Okay, it's funny. I didn't see Leanne's second question, but yes, you answered your own question. Yes, yes, yes. Would you open different shops on Etsy for each niche? Mm, no. Oh, I'm so sorry if that was really loud. So sorry. We're doing an ASMR video today, I guess, and I just smacked the crap out of you. When we are talking about niches, there are things called sub niches. There's cross niching. There's a bunch of different ways to go about this. But in my opinion, niche for today's purposes is back to school. And then a sub niche is students. A sub niche of a sub niche of that sub niche student, special education student. So you see what I'm saying? And then let's just say a cross niche example would be the sub niche of special education, cross niche with dinosaurs or something of the nature. So no, I would never make a bunch of different niches shops, because that's just, let's just say you make 3 shops. That's 3 times the amount of marketing you have to do, 3 times the amount of potential ad spend you have to do, 3 times the amount of research, which, as you can see, we've been talking about research alone for 34 minutes already. So you can see that that might get a little time sensitive. So no, I would never recommend building out those individual stores based on individual niches per se, if we're using today's example as an example. So again, um, special education niche, master's degree niche, no, but back to school as the overall umbrella niche with individual subs within the shop, absolutely, hands down. Okay. All right, looks like I got to all of the different questions. So again, if you have anything, by all means, keep putting them in there. Now we are going to get into, let me share my screen again. Now we are going to get into the actual back to school research. So now that we know how I do the research in the first place, how I even got to any of these numbers, now I'm going to show you what I basically break these down into. So the first thing is I look at niches. The second thing is, if I'm not mistaken, I want to make sure I'm not going out of turn, but the second thing is products. No, the second thing is keywords. And then the third thing is products. So what I wanted to show basically came from the process, the steps that I gave you guys earlier, is in this particular case, when I'm thinking about niches for back to school, again, like we discussed, it is like professions, types of students, and then, of course, who loves both of those people? Okay. So for professions, for example, I'm going to just scroll back up so I'm not skipping too far ahead. So when we think of professions, let's just use that as an example. Your brain is more than likely, I could be wrong, like don't let me judge you, but most brains are more than likely going to go to, let's say, again, our brains deal so like tight knit with recency and relevancy, which is hilarious because that's also how the Etsy search algorithm works. So if you have seen fourth grade teacher, kindergarten, nursing, teacher in general, you more than likely are automatically thinking of those professions. When we think of types of students, again, going back to my example from earlier, we're thinking kindergarten, we're thinking preschool, we're thinking fourth grade, fifth grade, whatever it may be. But I want you guys to step outside of yourself for a second and think about truly how many of these different types could there be? And that is where we go back to Charles and start with that research. So what we're going to go over in just a few moments is what happened after I conducted those 7 stages of research. Okay. So let's get into professions. So quick examples of professions. Again, we talked about special education. The good news is too, special education could also be the type of student, but in this case, I was using it for professions. So we're seeing not my favorite competition, but again, utilizing the steps I just gave you guys, we can dive even deeper into special education to bring these numbers down a little bit. But I was able to validate that special ed is doing well across the board with 600, 460, 500, 470 searches across 4 different long tail key phrases. Homeschool was also a really big one. However, as you can see, it also had a decent amount of competition. However, again, when I was like, okay, so what else could I do in the homeschool space by doing those 7 steps that I just showed you? Planner, look at that. Shirt, 180. We're talking like this one's a little bit too high for me, but we could dive a little bit deeper. But look at this right here. That is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Homeschool schedule, which by the way, could be a print on demand item, a handmade item, or a digital item if you put your mind to it and you get unique and creative. So homeschool schedule is currently being looked up over 530 times a month, and only 6,000 people are aware of that and competing for that space. Okay. Early childhood education / development, a good number of searches, probably not as high as I would want here, but again, that's why we do this research to determine if that's something we even want to get into. PE teacher, I found that to be very interesting. So physical education teacher and or coach, whatever you want to call them. Decent number, basically anything over 100 makes me happy. And then anything lower than 20,000 makes me happy. So to see that all of these right here are all pretty exactly aligned with what I want to do, except for PE teacher shirt. But again, 55 people are looking for it. So it could be something. Professor, in itself could be PhD, could be master's. In this case, college professor is again, same concept, very decent search, very decent competition. Professor in general, obviously the highest. And then this one blew me away. I was actually so surprised about this and so happily surprised. Gifted teacher, which by the way, I'm assuming gifted student is doing well too by this, but gifted teacher. Charles gave me this, by the way. I would have never thought of this. I was not a gifted student. I had severe ADHD and sit still issues. So gifted teacher, 5,000 plus searches. And then look at this versus 5,000 comp. So people like over 5,000 people are actively looking for either things for themselves as a gifted teacher or things for gifted teachers they love, or maybe they're a student and want to give something to them. 5,000 people versus only 5,000 people competing for that space. Gifted student T, 430 versus 470, exact same concept, basically one for one on both of these. And then we have gifted school shirt, again, 1,400 versus 2,400. Next up is I want you guys to think outside of professions. Okay, well, what types of students are there? So we know technically what types of teachers there are, or professors, or whatever we just went over. But now, what types of students are out there that we might not have thought about? Again, not fourth grade, not kindergarten, whatever. Those are very, very saturated. So, what can we do to kind of step outside a little bit? Again, using Charles and figuring out which ones are doing well. So you'll see doctoral student, PhD doctorate. By the way, everything that I'm putting on the types of students are also, as you can see, because I'm doing search versus comp, are also keywords and key phrases that you guys might be able to use. Bilingual education, or ED for short, that's actually the one that had the true search. MBA, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong here, that's like Masters of Business, I believe. Psychology student, which is what I was. So I would actively look this up. Neonatal nurse, comparatively to regular nurse or nurse practitioner. This is still being looked up a decent amount, but has way less competition than standardly nurse would. Vet student, same concept comparatively to veterinarian. Okay. So that's what I want you guys to think about is get outside of yourself for a second. Be willing and open to what AI or softwares or tools could potentially help you with to make this so much easier, because nonverbal student athletes, I would have never thought of any of these things on my own, because I am very in my own head and I am very like, these are things that I like and I assume that everyone else will like them. And that's 99% of the time not the case. Okay. Last up actually it's kind of part 3 is our keywords. Okay, so again, I gave you guys this PDF, which has this link. I'm going to click on the link and show you where it goes. I went ahead and built this for you guys, and literally all I did, it wasn't a lot, but all I did was I went to the keyword research tool, went to the tag analyzer, literally clicked export into an Excel file, and then filtered by keyword score, and then deleted any keyword score that was 0. And I also deleted any volume that was less than 50. Took me literally minutes to do this, probably 3 minutes in total. And this is something that now, theoretically speaking, I could go through this entire list. I want to say, let me just see. What are we dealing with? I think 200 plus. Let's see. Yeah, 270 new key phrases, long tail key phrases, keyword pairings, products, potential niches. Like, this is how I got to this list. So I wanted to go ahead and give it to you guys. This is done under the professor search, but you could literally do this for any other search that you do within that 7-step process. So you will have access to this. It is actively linked, as you can see within the PDF. Feel free to use any of this. This is not proprietary. This is literally just some research that I did. And I was like, I think you guys might like this. So here you go. But it also gives you 270 more opportunities for deep dive research. Okay. Last but not least, I wanted to also hit on products really fast. So like I said a second ago, I kind of broke this into 3 prong approach. We've got our niches, our niche types, we've got our keywords and our keyword pairings, and lastly, we've got our products. So now that we've done all of this research, we theoretically speaking should know exactly what to move forward with that is going to already be pre-validated on Etsy as a high or a potential performer. So what I wanted to do here, someone asked the question earlier and I answered it lightly, but I also was waiting to answer it fully until we got to the end of this kind of conversation today. What I don't want to say cheaper, but what other types of products can we use for back to school or anything else for that matter that are lower competition and might still be in demand for the niche? So thinking of things that could potentially be sexy to someone in, let's say, the special ed space or in the neonatal search space, in the PhD professor. So the things that I found, and again, you guys all have access to this, so you don't have to write all these down right now. But what I found to be basically, I have more than 10, but like the top 10 that were doing really, really well in other places, which means they might also do well in these other niches we've discussed today, but also things that each of those individual searches that we did together would be attracted to. So personalized desk calendars could be for 10 different niches we went through today. Personalized sports number shirts could be for the student athlete themselves and the entire family of the student athlete, the girlfriend of the student athlete, maybe the grandpa, the cousin, whatever. So there's a way to make that even bigger than just the student athlete themselves. Personalized mouse pad and laptop holder. There was also pad folios, which I forgot to write down, but like those leather bound executive kind of style pad folios that you're going to see lawyers, MBA, masters, professors, PhD, etc. wanting to carry around. I actually found one on Etsy that was over $146,000 a month in estimated revenue for a personalized pad folio. Another thing I wanted to hit on really quickly here was Ping. I think you say it right, Ping, or let's just call it PNG versus SVG designs. Most people in the back to school space, or any space for that matter, are only going to do pings or SVGs for personal use. If you are open to it and interested in selling for commercial use, that potentially could increase your ability to make sales simply because someone else could potentially make money from the design itself. Okay, so just keep that in mind as a potential option. So with that said, guys, it is almost 10:50. So that is all for the training that I had today. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I got a couple comments, so I want to make sure I open those up really quickly. My question is about using unit sales instead of number of searches as the defining metric to pull up the tags I used, keyword searches, etc. I like to think actual sales is a better metric to use versus number of searches. Fair. Searches can include people that shopped and clicked around but never bought anything, right? Yes, very, very good point. That is kind of, so it's not in today's training. This was simply just the research to get to the place of like these things actually are in demand of people that are actively searching. But yes, that would be kind of like step 10, if you will, is actually getting into the product analytics dashboard and searching by either monthly revenue or monthly sales. And then I personally also like to put a filter on whatever search I'm doing before I filter those out. So before I, go up and down by monthly sales or monthly revenue, I also like to put a maximum listing age of 12 months, like at the most, maybe even 6 months, and then a maximum shop age as well. So that will tell me not only did I vet all of these things are in demand, but I'm also vetting that these things are actually selling as well. Michael said, do you use Hello Custom along with Printify and Etsy for custom products? Good question. I love Hello Custom. One of my friends is actually the owner of it. His name is Steven. He is fantastic. Highly, highly recommend checking them out if you haven't already. If you don't know what Hello Custom is, I'm going to do a little plug for them. So Hello Custom basically allows you to have a software integrated into your Etsy and your print on demand provider that allows for the personalization piece to be easier. So Hello Custom will own the personalization instead of you having to go in into Adobe, into Kittl, into Canva, and redoing it every single time someone does a personalized order. So if you're in the personalization space, highly recommend checking them out. And Michael, to answer your question, yes, I do use all of those companies and a couple others on the side as well. But yes, those are the ones that I mostly gravitate towards. All right. It looks like we have finished all of the questions today. So, of course, if anything else comes up, you know where to find me. Like, do not hesitate to pop that information or that question in the comments of this video. If you ever go back and you have more questions, I'm always here. Feel free to pop them in. Also, highly recommend, like we discussed, go watch that video from Tuesday and drop any questions that you have for me in that one as well. I might even make a part 2 for that video in August to answer the questions, the many questions that I'm getting about it. So if you guys have anything, feel free to let me know. Make sure you are in the Facebook group as well. You can directly communicate with me, my own personal Facebook right there. And I think that's really all we have today, but I really appreciate everyone, whether you are a brand newcomer or if you are someone that has been here with me for multiple weeks in a row. I really, really do appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, someone asked really quickly before we go. When it comes to searches and competition, can you remind me the cap that you go with? This is just an IMO, in my opinion, thing. This is not Bible. This is not Etsy tells you to look at these things, or EverBee even tells you. I personally look at anything over 100 volume and anything under 20,000, which is pushing it. I don't even like going that high, but anything under around 20,000 comp. And then just finding the healthy ones in those spaces. Okay. So thank you guys so much for being here. If you are brand new, I hope to see you guys back next Thursday. We do this every single Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. There are a couple, weeks that we might be gone just because I'm going to Miami in a few weeks, but you can more than likely find us every Thursday right here. Thank you so much for being here with us, and we will talk to you next week. See you guys.